Welcome to the 1000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 935th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when Abu Kir beat Abu Sir and thrust him forth, he said to those present, He is a thief who stealeth the stuffs of folk. He hath robbed me of cloth. How many a time? And I still said in myself, Allah forgive him. He is a poor man, and I cared not to deal roughly with him. So I used to give him my customers the worth of their goods, and forbid him gently. But he would have not been forbidden, and if he come again, I will send him to the king, who will put him to death, and rid the people of his mischief. And the bystanders fell to abusing the barber after his back was turned. Such was the behavior of Abu Kir. But as regards Abu Sir, he returned to the Khan, where he sat pondering that which the dyer had done by him, and he remained seated till the burning of the beating subsided, and he went out and walked about the markets of the city. Presently he bethought him to go to the Hamman baths, so he said to one of the folks, O my brother, which is the way to the baths? Quoth the man, And what manner of thing may the baths be? And quoth Abu Sir, 'Tis a place where people wash themselves and do away their dirt and defilements, and it is the best of good things of the world. Replied the townsman, Get thee to the sea. But the barber rejoined, I want the Hamman baths. Cried the other, We know not what manner of thing is the Hamman, for we all resort to the sea. Even the king, when he would wash, betaketh himself to the sea. When Abu Sir was assured that there was no bath in the city, and that the folk knew not the baths, nor the fashion thereof, he betook himself to the king's divan, and kissing ground between his hands, called down blessings on him, and said, I am a stranger, and a bathman by trade, and I entered the city, and thought to go to the Hamman, but found not one therein. How cometh the city of this comely quality to lack a Hamman, seeing that the bath is of the highest of the delights of this world? Quoth the king, What manner of thing is the Hamman? So Abu Sir proceeded to set forth to him the quality of the bath, saying, Thy capital will not be a perfect city till there is a Hamman therein. Welcome to thee, said the king, and clad him in a dress that had not its like, and gave him a horse and 2 blackamoor slaves. Presently adding 4 handmaids and as many white Mamelukes, he also appointed him a furnished house, and honored him, and yet more abundantly than he had honored the dyer. And after this he sent builders with him, saying to them, Build him a Hamman, in what place soever shall please him. So he took them, and they went with him through the midst of the city, till they saw a stead that suited him. He pointed it out to the builders, and they set to work, whilst he directed them, and they wrought till they builded him a Hamman, that had not its like. Then he bade them paint it, and they painted it rarely, so that it was a delight to the beholders. After which Abu Sir went up to the king, and told him that they had made an end of building and decorating the Hamman, adding, There lacketh naught save the furniture. The king gave him 10,000 dinars, wherewith he furnished the bath, and ranged the napkins on the ropes, and all who passed by the door stared at it, and their mind was confounded at its decorations. So the people crowded to the spectacle, whose like they had never seen in their lives since, and solaced themselves by staring at it and saying, What is this thing? To which Abu Sir replied, This is a Hamman, and they marveled thereat. Then he heated water and set the bath a-working, and he made a jetting fountain in the great basin, which ravished the wits of all who saw it of the people of the city. Furthermore, he sought of the king 10 Mamelukes not yet come to manhood, and he gave him 10 boys like moons, whereupon Abu Sir proceeded to shampoo them, saying, Do in this wise with the bathers. Then he burnt perfumes, and set out a crier to cry aloud in the city, saying, O creatures of Allah, get ye to the baths, which shall be called the Sultan's Hamman. So the lieges came thither, and Abu Sir bade the slave boys wash their bodies. The folk went down into the tank, and coming forth, seated themselves on the raised pavement, whilst the boys shampooed them, even as Abu Sir had taught them. And they continued to enter the Hamman, and do their need therein gratis, and go out without paying for the space of 3 days. On the 4th day, the barber invited the king, who took horse with his grandees, and rode to the baths, where he put off his clothes and entered. Then Abu Sir came into him and rubbed his body with the bag gloves, peeling from his skin dirt rolls like lamp wicks, and showing them to the king, who rejoiced therein, and clapping his hands upon his limbs, heard them ring again for their very smoothness and cleanliness. After which thorough washing, Abu Sir mingled rose water with the water of the tank, and the king went down therein, and he came forth. His body was refreshed, and he felt a lightness and liveliness such as he had never known in his life. Then the barber made him sit in the days, and the boys proceeded to shampoo him, while the censers perfumed with the finest lin aloes. Then said the king, "O master, is this the Hamman?" And Abu Sir said, "Yes." Quoth the king, "As my head liveth, my city is not become a city indeed, but by this bath." Presently adding, "But what pay takest thou for each person?" Quoth Abu Sir, "That which thou biddest I will take." Whereupon the king cried, "Take 1,000 gold pieces for every one who washes in thy Hamman." Abu Sir, however, said, "Pardon, O king of the age, all men are not alike, but there are amongst them rich and poor, and if I take of each 1,000 dinars, the Hamman will stand empty, for the poor man cannot pay this price." Asked the king, "How then wilt thou do for the price?" And the barber answered, "I will leave it to their generosity. Each who can afford aught shall pay that which his soul grudgeth not to give, and we will take from every man after the measure of his means. On this wise will the folk come to us, and he who is wealthy shall give according to his station, and he who is wealthless shall give what he can afford. Under such condition the Hamman will still be at work and prosper exceedingly. But 1,000 dinars is a monarch's gift, and not every man can avail to this." The lords of the realm confirmed Abu Sir's words, saying, "This is the truth, O king of the age. Thinkest thou that all folk are alike unto thee, O glorious king?" The king replied, "Yea, say sooth, but this man is a stranger and poor, and is incumbent on us to deal generously with him, for that he hath made in our city this Hamman, whose like we have never in our lives seen, and without which our city were not adorned, nor hath gotten importance. Wherefore, an we favour him with increase of fee, 'twill not be much." But the grandee said, "And thou wilt guerdon him by generous with thine own monies, and let the king's bounty be extended to the poor by means of the low price of the Hamman, so the lieges may bless thee. But as for 1,000 dinars, we are the lords of thy land, yet do our souls grudge to pay it, and then how should the poor be pleased to afford it?" Quoth the king, "O my grandees, for this time let each of you give him 100 dinars, and a Mameluke, a slave girl, and a blackamoor." And quoth he, "To us well, we will give it, but after today, whoso entereth shall give him only what he can afford without grudging." "No harm in that," said the king, and they gave him the 1,000 gold pieces and 3 chattels. Now the number of the nobles who were washed with the king that day was 400 souls. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 936th night, she continued, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the number of the nobles who were washed with the king that day were 400 souls, so that the total of that which they gave him was 40,000 dinars, besides 400 Mamelukes and a like number of negroes and slave girls. Moreover, the king gave him 10,000 dinars, besides 10 white slaves and 10 handmaidens, and a like number of blackamoors. Whereupon, coming forward, Abu Sir kissed the ground before him and said, 'O auspicious sovereign, lord of justice, what place will contain me all these women and slaves?' Quoth the king, 'O weak of wit, I bade not my nobles deal thus with thee, but we might gather together unto thee wealth galore, for maybe thou wilt bethink thee of thy country and family, and repine for them, and be minded to return to thy motherland. So shalt thou take our country much of money to maintain thyself withal, what while thou livest in thine own country.' And quoth Abu Sir, 'O king of the age, Allah advance thee, these white slaves and women and negroes befit only kings, and hast thou ordered me ready money, it were more profitable to me than this army, for they must eat and drink and dress, and whatever betideth me of wealth, it will not suffice for their support.' The king laughed and said, 'By Allah, thou speakest sooth. They are indeed a mighty host, and thou hast not the wherewithal to maintain them. But wilt thou sell them to me for 100 dinars a head? Said Abu Sir, I sell them to thee at that price. So the king sent to his treasurer for the coin, and he bought it, and gave Abu Sir the whole of the price without abatement, and in full tale, after which the king restored the slaves to their owners, saying, Let each of you who knoweth his slaves take them, for they are a gift from me to you. So obeyed his bidding, and took each what belonged to him, whilst Abu Sir said to the king, Allah ease thee. O king of the age, even as thou hast eased me of these fools, whose bellies none may fill save Allah. The king laughed, and said he spake sooth. Then, taking the grandees of his realm from the Hamman, returned to his palace. But the barber passed the night in counting out his gold, and laying it in bags, and sealing them, and he had with him 20 black slaves, and a like number of Mamelukes, and 4 slave girls to serve him. Now, when morning morrowed, he opened the Hamman, and sent out a crier to say, Whoso entereth the baths and washeth shall give that which he can afford, and which his generosity requireth him to give. Then he seated himself by the pay chest, and the customers flocked in upon him, each putting down that which was easy for him. Nor had eventide erred, the chest was full of the good gifts of Allah the Most High. Presently the queen desired to go to the Hamman, and when this came to Abu Sir's knowledge, he divided the day on her account into 2 parts, appointing that between dawn and noon to men, and that between midday and sundown to women. As soon as the queen came, he stationed a handmaid behind the pay chest, for he had taught 4 slave girls the service of the Hamman, so that they became expert bath women and tire women. When the queen entered, this pleased her, and her breast waxed broad, and she laid down 1,000 dinars. Thus his report was noised abroad in the city, and all who entered the bath he entered with honor, whether they were rich or poor. Good came in upon him at every door, and he made acquaintances with the royal guards, and got him friends and intimates. The king himself used to come to him one day in every week, leaving with him 1,000 dinars, and the other days were for rich and poor alike, and he was wont to deal courteously with the folk, and use them with the utmost respect. It chanced that the king's sea captain came in to him one day in the bath, so Abu Sir did off his dress, and going in with him proceeded to shampoo him, and treated him with exceeding courtesy. When he came forth, he made him sherbet and coffee, and when he would have given him somewhat, he swore that he would not accept from him aught. So the captain was under obligation to him by reason of exceeding kindness and courtesy, and was perplexed how to requite the bathman his generous dealing. Then fared it with Abu Sir. But as regards Abu Kir, hearing all the people recounting the wonders of the bath, and saying, Verily this Hamman is the paradise of the world. Inshallah, O such and thou shalt go with us tomorrow to this delightful bath. And he said to himself, Needs must I fare like the rest of the world, and see this bath that hath taken folks' wits. So he donned his richest dress, and mounting a she-mule, and bidding the attendants of 4 white slaves and 4 blacks, walking before and behind, he rode to the Hamman. When he alighted at the door, he smelt the scent of burning aloes wood, and found people going in and out, and the benches were full and great and small. So he entered the vestibule, and saw Abu Sir, who rose to him and rejoiced in him. But the dyer said to him, Is this the way of well-born men? I have opened me a dyery, and am become a master dyer of the city, and acquainted with the king, and have risen to prosperity and authority. Yet camest thou not to me, nor asked of me, nor saidst, Where's my comrade? For my part, I sought thee in vain, and sent my slaves and servants to make search for thee in all the khans and other places. But they knew not whither thou hadst gone, nor could any of them give me tidings of thee. Said Abu Sir, Did I not come to thee, and didst thou not make me out a thief and a bastino, and dishonor me before the world? At this Abu Kir made a show of concern, and asked, What manner of talk is this? Was it thou whom I beat? And Abu Sir answered, Yes, 'twas I. Whereupon Abu Kir swore to him 1,000 oaths that he knew not, and said, There was a fellow like thee, who used to come every day and steal the people's stuff, and I took thee for him. And he went to pretend penitence, beating hand upon hand, and saying, There is no majesty, and there is no might, save in Allah, the glorious, the great. Indeed, we have sinned against thee. But would thou hadst discovered thyself to me, and said, I am such an one. Indeed, the fault is with thee, for thou madest not thyself known unto me, more especially seeing that I was distracted for much business. Replied Abu Kir, Allah pardon thee, O my comrade. This was foreordained in the secret purpose, and reparation is with Allah. Enter and put off thy clothes, and bathe at thy knees. Said the dyer, I conjure thee by Allah, O my brother, forgive me. And said Abu Kir, Allah acquit thee of blame and forgive thee. Indeed, this thing was decreed to me from all eternity. Then asked Abu Kir, Whence gottest thou in this high degree? And answered Abu Kir, He who prospered thee prospered me. For I went up to the king and described to him the fashion of the Hamman, and he bade me build one. And the dyer said, Even as thou art be known of the king, so also am I. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 937th night, she pursued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when Abu Kir and Abu Kir were exchanging reproof and excuse, the dyer said to him, Even as thou art beknown of the king, so also am I. Inshallah, good willing, I will make him love and favor thee more than ever for my sake. He knoweth not that thou art my comrade, but I will acquaint him of this and commend thee to him. But Abu Kir said, There needeth no commendation, for he who moveth man's heart to love still liveth. And indeed the king and all his court affect me, and have given me this and that. And he told him the whole story, and said to him, Put off thy clothes behind the chest, and enter the Hamman, and I will go in with thee, and rub thee down with a glove. So he doffed his dress, and Abu Kir, entering the bath with him, soaped him, and gloved him, and then dressed him, and busied himself with his service till he came forth, when he brought him dinner and sherbets, whilst all the folk marvelled at the honour he did him. Then Abu Kir would have given him somewhat, but he swore that he would not accept aught from him, and said to him, Shame upon such things! Thou art my comrade, and there is no difference between us. Then Abu Kir observed, By Allah, O my comrade, this is a mighty fine Hamman of thine, but there lacketh somewhat in its ordinance. Asked Abu Kir, And what is that? And Abu Kir answered, It is the depilatory, to wit the paste, compounded of yellow arsenic, and quicklime which removeth the hair with comfort. Do thou prepare it, and the next time the king cometh, present it to him, teaching him how he shall cause the hair to fall off by such means, and he will love thee with exceeding love and honour. Quoth Abu Kir, Thou speakest sooth, and inshallah I will at once make of it. Then Abu Kir left him, and mounting his mule, and going to the king, said to him, I have a warning to give thee, O king of the age. And what is this warning? Asked the king. And Abu Kir answered, I hear that thou hast built a Hamman. Quoth the king, Yes, there came to me a stranger, and I builded the baths for him, even as I builded the dyery for thee. And indeed it is a mighty fine Hamman, and an ornament in my city. And he went on to describe to him the virtues of the bath. Quoth the dyer, Hast thou entered therein? And the king said, Yes. Thereupon cried Abu Kir, Alhamdulillah, praise be God, who saved thee from the mischief of yonder villain and foe of the faith, I mean the bath-keeper. The king inquired, And what of him? And Abu Kir replied, Know, O king of the age, that an thou enter the Hamman again after this day, thou wilt surely perish. How so? Said the king. And the dyer said, The bath-keeper is thy foe, and the foe of the faith, and he induced thee not to establish this bath, but because he designed therein to poison thee. He hath made for thee somewhat, and he will present it to thee when thou enterest the Hamman, saying, This is a drug, which, if applied to these parts below the waist, will remove the hair with comfort. Now it is no drug, but a drastic dreg, and a deadly poison. For the Sultan of the Christians hath promised his obsessed fellow to release him and his wife and children, and he will kill thee, for they are prisoners in the hands of that Sultan. I myself was captive with him in their land, but I opened a dyery and dyed for them various colors, so that they eased the king's heart to me, and he bade me to ask a boon of him. I sought of him freedom, and he set me at liberty. Whereupon I made my way to this city, and seeing yonder man in the Hamman, said to him, How dost thou escape and win free thy wife and children? Quoth he, We ceased not to be in captivity, I and my wife and children, till one day the king of the Nazarenes held a court, whereat I was present amongst the number of others. And as I stood among the folks, I heard them open on the kings, and named them one after another, till they came to the name of the king of this city, whereupon the king of the Christians cried out, Alas! and said, None vexeth me in the world but the king of such a city. Whosoever will contrive me his slaughter, I will give him what he asked. So I went up to him, and he said, And I compass for thee his slaughter. Wilt thou set me free, and my wife, and my children? The king replied, Yes, and I will give thee to boot whatso thou shalt desire. So we agreed upon this, and he sent me in a galleon to this city, where I presented myself to the king, and he built me this Hamman. Now therefore I have naught to do but to slay him and return to the king of the Nazarenes, that I may redeem my children and my wife, and ask a boon of him. Quoth I, And how wilt thou go about to kill him? And quoth he, By the simplest of all devices. For I have compounded him somewhat wherein is poison. So when he cometh at the bath, I shall say to him, Take this paste, and anoint therewith thy parts below the waist, for it will cause the hair to drop off. So he will take it and apply it to himself. The poison will work in him in a day and a night, till it reacheth his heart and destroyeth him. And meanwhile I shall have made off, and none will know that it was I who slew him. When I heard this, added Abu Kir, I feared for thee, my benefactor, wherefore I have told thee of what is doing. As soon as the king heard the Dyer's story, he was wroth with exceeding wrath, and said to him, Keep this secret. Then he resolved to visit the Hamman, that he might dispel doubt by supplying certainty. And when he entered, Abu Kir doffed his dress, and betaking himself of wont to the service of the king, proceeded to glove him. After which he said to him, O king of the age, I have made a drug which assisteth in plucking out the lower hair. Cried the king, Bring it to me. So the barber brought it to him, and the king, finding it nauseous of smell, was assured that it was poison. Wherefore he was incensed, and called to his servants, saying, Seize him! Accordingly they seized him, and the king donned his dress, and returned to his palace, boiling with fury, whilst none knew the cause of his indignation, for by the excess of his wrath he had acquainted no one therewith, and none dare ask him. Then he repaired to the audience chamber, and caused Abu Kir to be brought before him, and his elbows pinioned, set for his sea captain, and said to him, Take this villain, and set him in a sack with 2 quintals of lime unslacked, and tie its mouth over its head. Then lay him in a cockboat, and row out with him in the front of my palace, where thou wilt see me sitting at the lattice. Do thou say to me, Shall I cast him in? And if I answer, Cast him, throw the sack into the sea, so the quicklime may be slacked on him, to the intent that he shall die, drowned and burnt. Hearkening and obeying, quoth the captain, and taking Abu Kir from the presence, carried him to an island facing the king's palace, where he said to him, Ho thou, I once visited thy Hamman, and thou entreatest me with honor and accomplishment all my needs. I had great pleasures of thee. Moreover, thou swearest that thou wouldst take no pay of me, and I love thee with great love. So tell me how the case standeth between thee and the king, and what abominable deed thou hast done with him, that he is wroth with thee, and hath commanded me that I shouldest die this foul death. Answered Abu Kir, I have done nothing, nor weet I of any crime. I have committed against him which meriteth this. Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my telling of this tale for today, till it be morrow.